morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And obviously, PvP has its problems that are leading to lower participation. And in today's video, I wanted to cover a quick fix that I think can remedy this issue, as it seems like other issues are something that Blizzard is likely going to be looking at in the future, given the track that they've shown on one of their press releases as far as reward structures. And we'll kind of have to wait and see how the MMR system plays out when Season 2 starts to see if there have been any adjustments made to that. But this is an adjustment that I think can be made immediately for this season and would likely drive participation up. It would get a lot more people to play healer and get a lot more people interested in getting good at healer, which is exactly what we need in the game for faster queues. And that's been the big issue, right, everybody? If you're in the comment section and you agree with me, faster queues, let me know, because that's what we all want. We want faster queues. How do we get faster queues? We get people that want to play healer, and we get people who want to be getting good at healer, right? So that over time, that pool is increasing of dedicated players. Now, what you're going to notice here is I have two data set points open, basically. I've got participation and popularity of specializations, and we're going to look at the ladder and see how the rewards are distributed to these specializations. So at the end of the season, we had Frost Mage at a staggering 21% popularity rate. It was the #1 specialization as far as popularity. And we had something like Augmentation Evoker at 0.37% at the lowest bottom end of participation for ranged. For melee DPS on the final day of the season, Ret Paladin skyrocketed to 21% popularity rate as the most popular spec for Season 1, and Survival Hunter was at the bottom at 2.33%. And when we look at healers, Discipline Priest fell a bit from 35% down to 30%, but still the most popular spec, probably period, across all roles. And the lowest represented healer was 5.2%. So you can see that there's a staggering difference. Now, popularity, fun factor, and balance play a huge factor, and even class fantasy as well, or role fantasy, right? A lot of other specializations just have strong fantasy. For example, Unholy DK down here is at 5.45%. That's very low representation relative to Rat at 21% or Fury at 15%. But Unholy Death Knight, when we look at the ladder structure, actually had a decent amount of titles available to it at the end of the season, irregardless of that fact. Their cutoff was 2742, which meant that to get rank 1 as a Frost Death Knight, or as an Unholy Death Knight, and this number might be off, it was somewhere around 25 spots. That is a lot. So your end of season title reward is based off the popularity of your specialization. The more popular your spec, the more spots for your spec, which means you're going to be able to get more titles. You'll be able to get a title easier on a spec that's popular, basically, towards the end of the season. Now, the same thing when we looked at Frost, which was the most represented range. Its cutoff was at 2894, which when we're scrolling through the numbers to find who is 2894, some of this is a little bit inaccurate because the ladder doesn't update exactly. It's somewhere in and around 20 spots. But when we look at an Arcane Mage, which was on the lower end, or even an Augmentation Evoker, they're both in a basically the similar boat as far as representation. It was 2688, which, somewhere around 3 or 4 spots. So Frostmage, most popular spec that everyone's re-rolling because it's strong and it's popular, whereas less powerful spec and less popular spec now has less spots, which is going to funnel more people out of that spec. Because what's the point? I literally have to be the best player on that spec in order to get an end of season reward, whereas I can just be the random Joe Unholy DK in the top 25 and I can get a title. So to me, this system, it's dated and it doesn't incentivize people in the right manner. And the most staggering example of that is going to be Priest, which is why we need to look at it. Discipline Priest, most popular spec across the board, especially out of the healers. Its cutoff was, I just scrolled past it, 2719, which I think put it close to like 30, more than 30 spots. It's more than 30 spots. It might be even coming in at 40 spots or something like that. Some of these are alts, take that into account, but even that alt situation is just a complete mess for the end of season as far as determining who gets a title and who gets a reward. So to me, this current system, it's very convoluted. Lots of players use third-party sites to try and track their placing and their ranking to see what's going on. There can be ties. There can be alts. It's a whole slew of messy stuff to try and even figure out if you're going to get a reward at the end of the season and what to play for. And if you're a healer or a spec that's not popular, you're disincentivized heavily on trying to go for this because you literally, in most cases, need to be the best player on that spec, and your spec is already probably weak or at least less popular. So it becomes incredibly difficult to even see this as a possibility to get a reward. It's totally dated, and I think it needs to be completely pulled out and shredded. And my idea to replace it is to just put a static number of spots for a spec, just a static number every season. And I think healers need to have more spots. We need to give healers more stuff because we need more people playing healer. So for example, if there are 30 spots for every healing specialization, right? If there are 30 spots for every healing specialization, when we look at healers, and the lowest represented healer, right, was Holy Priest at 5.2%. So when we look at Holy Priest, what would that have done as far as increasing participation for Holy Priest? Because I think right now it was like 3 priests ended up getting the title. So it's like somewhere around 3 or 4. If it was 30 priests get it, look how many more people. It would have gone all the way down here. These guys all would have had something to play for. And these guys as well. Think about how much more competition it opens up. Because these guys get their elite title, and they're like, I'm a Holy Priest. I don't know if I'm getting up to 2,800 or whatever it is to get the top 3 Holy Priest. I'm kind of going to tap out. And then when they tap out, the queues get longer. But if we opened enough spots, 30 spots to these guys, all these guys would queue. I mean, imagine that. You're like 20 rating away from the cutoff, right? Like I said, 30 spots. These guys are all 20, 50 rating away from the cutoff. They would all keep playing. They would all keep trying to climb because now they can actually have a chance at getting that title. Whereas in the current system, they don't. They quit. Their spec is already kind of weak. Obviously, that's game balance issue. That should all be addressed as well. And in the next patch, I think the healer balance is likely going to be a lot better. But this end of season push would get a lot more people funneled into this, and it wouldn't just be arbitrarily determined because your class is OP or your class is popular. So to me, healers should have a static number of spots available to every spec that is more than the DPS. So if it's 30 healer spots per spec, then maybe it's 20 DPS spots per spec, because we already know the system is currently easier to get rating as DPS. Let's make something a little bit easier to get as a healer. And this isn't like it's completely free, right? Because think about how much competition this would start to uptick. All these guys would keep playing like, oh my God, I'm just 1 win away from getting it. I'm going to go for it again. I'm going to go for it again. I'm going to go for it again. And they would queue. And we would keep getting games. And everybody would keep getting better at the game. And we would have a healthy, competitive environment. So to me, I think that needs to happen 100%. There's also something else that we need to talk about, which is prop paladins. Prop paladins are a spec on the ladder that only queue into other prop paladins, and they fill the healer role. And this was during a time where prop paladin was balanced and maybe capable of doing that. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that a lot of DPS, let me know in the comments down below, get frustrated when you get the 1% opportunity to play in a lobby with prop paladins, and it's just really frustrating. And it doesn't really make sense. The pacing is really fast. I even tried to play prop paladin a little bit to give it a go. But what's ended up happening in this bracket, and I'm not going to accuse anyone directly because I don't know who or which ones exactly, but it becomes very easy to win trade as a prop paladin because you only queue in other prop paladins. So you get some MMR on 2 accounts, queue into each other, give your one prod a 6-0. Now he's in rank 1 range. Make a bunch of alts on those accounts, keep feeding into each other because you're going to get instant queues into each other. No one's playing prot. This spec is corrupted from a win trading aspect, and it's not fun gameplay. So prop paladin needs to just go in the pool with the other DPS specs the same way that prop warriors and guardian druids are. I think it's fine. It's fine to have them go in like that. The game, it's obviously I would maybe like it if tanks weren't there at all, but hey, some people like to do it and they want to try and make it work, so whatever. But they need to be a DPS. I think it's going to be a lot better than if they're the healer in the game directly, just immediately. And we need to remove, strip the rewards from this section because it is just, this entire city needs to be purged, okay? And I'm Arthas right now. And I don't care if the prop paladins are saying, no, don't do it. Like, this entire city needs to be purged. This entire section is Stratholme. We need to get rid of this. We need to get rid of this. This shouldn't be a thing. Prop paladin, it's not making more games. It's not making more people heal. No one's doing it. It's just a couple of dudes that are making multiple alts and win trading with each other with terrible gameplay. We need to get rid of this. This needs to be gone. It's just no more prop paladin healers. They're just a DPS spec. And I think tank specs should probably be limited to 3 spots or something like that. Because if we did 30 spots for tanks, you could see like we're going down like to 2100, and this is for prot, which has its own thing. Like people would be getting rank 1 at like 1500, I think, on some specializations. So I think doing like 20 or 30 spots for a tank is a little bit too much, and I wouldn't want to like incentivize people heavily to switch to tank to try and get an easier title. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you guys are like dedicated tank players, you really like it, whatever, I've done it too. It can be fun to try and challenge yourself like that. So it's like, okay, that's fine. It might be another thing to try and incentivize people to switch to tank specs because it's possibly an easier title. I don't think that should be the case. So to me, I think tank spots should be a much smaller number of cutoff, like top 3 for tank specs, let's say top 30 for healers. And these numbers are all arbitrary, right? But you could see with the Holy Priest one as the best example that a lot of these guys would have probably kept queuing. They would have kept trying. If it wasn't just only top 3 Holy Priests get the title at the end. More people get to participate in the end of season fun, and a bunch of these guys would have got really good at the game if they had kept playing and had that incentive to go towards that end of season competitive reward. So to me, this just seems like an easy fix. I've tried to like counter argue against myself as far as like what are the downsides of this. The only downside is that you maybe don't feel as cool because you're the only arcane mage that got a rank 1 title, but it's like you get the same title every other spec gets, except it was 30 times harder to get for you, and no one knows because it's the same title. So it doesn't, to me, I don't see much benefit in keeping it the way that it is. I think switching it to the system that I'm suggesting removes a lot of the corruption, removes a lot of the win trading, opens up more spots for those rewards for more players to try and be competitive to go for, regardless if their spec is popular or not, or strong or not, which will likely lead to more queues for this season and likely following season. So if you guys agree with that and this is a change that you would like to see be made, then like the video, share it with somebody, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be constantly relaying news to you guys here, so you're staying up to date with everything related to World of Warcraft, and I appreciate your support on my journey of getting to 100,000 subscribers as a PvP creator. I'm playing YouTube on hard mode, so I really appreciate you guys sticking out there through thick and thin for this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much.